So, welcome everyone to this session. My name is Roisin Corcoran, and I'm honoured to serve as the co chair of the Education Coordinating Group and to chair this session for today. The title of today's session is The Disability and Education Coordinating Groups of the Campbell Collaboration Maximising Impact Through Evidence Synthesis. And we have four presenters today. I'm going to start, as I mentioned, I'm the ECG co-chair. Then we'll hear from Sarah Miller. Sarah is the director of Campbell UK and Ireland and also serves as the ECG co-chair and editor. Then we'll hear from Joann Starks. Joann is the Disability Coordinating Group co-chair. And then Oliver Wendt, who is also DCG co-chair. So just in terms of the format for today's session, I'll start by giving a quick overview of the Campbell ECG, the Education Coordinating Group. Then we're going to hear from Sarah Miller. Sarah will talk about the editorial process for the Education Coordinating Group, and she will showcase some of the Education Coordinating Group synthesis products. Then we're going to hear from Oliver Wendt, and he's going to talk about an overview of the Campbell Disability Coordinating Group. And then we'll hear from Joann Starks. Joann will talk a little bit more about the Disability Coordinating Group and their editorial process. And then we're going to talk about strategies to embed and maximize impact when submitting systematic review proposals and knowledge translation strategies. And that's going to be led by Oliver Wendt. And then we're going to finish with a Q&A session. So if you're listening and you're in the audience and you have questions, please put them into the chat. We will try and get through as many questions as we can at the end. But of course, if we don't, you can always reach out to any of the presenters directly. I would encourage all of the attendees, please tweet during the conference using the hashtag WWGS2022. And again, the conference is hosted by the Campbell Collaboration and UK and Ireland Campbell Centre, and it's co-sponsored by the Pan America Health Organization, World Health Organization. And I wish to sincerely thank all of the conference sponsors, which you can see on your slide there, for their continued support. So I'm just going to stop sharing my slide now, and we'll get the presentation slides and we'll get going with the presentation. Okay, here we go. Okay, so as I mentioned, the title of the presentation is The Disability and Education Coordinating Groups of the Campbell Collaboration, Maximizing Impact Through Evidence Synthesis. And so just to tell you a little bit about the Campbell Education Coordinating Group, we are an international network that includes scholars, policymakers, practitioners, and funders, all interested in evidence-based practice, policy, and systematic reviews. And the ECG focuses on areas such as compulsory school-age education, special education, adult and professional education, early childhood education, higher education, speech and language pathology, literacy, and STEM. So we have a very broad remit in the Education Coordinating Group. We kind of cover the full spectrum in terms of education. And education was actually one of the first coordinating groups that was established when Campbell Collaboration, when it was founded in 2000. So we are one of the original and kind of long-standing groups of the Campbell Collaboration. And we'll talk a little bit about our products, and you'll see just the breadth of products that we have published since the ECG was founded back in 2000. We also received financial support from Queen's University Belfast, which covers some staff time. So we're very grateful to Queen's University Belfast for really supporting and encouraging the work of the Education Coordinating Group. And on this slide here, very briefly, I'll just talk about the ECG and our key objectives. We really have four key objectives. The first is to produce systematic reviews of interventions, instruction, remediation, treatment, and education. And these reviews focus on substantive topics through the summary and analysis of high quality research evidence provided by studies that use quality controlled research methods such as randomized controlled trials, quasi experimental designs, and single subject designs. However, we also support systematic reviews involving studies focusing on process, implementation, qualitative, and participatory methods studies. Our second objective is to establish a network of collaborators who want to undertake or contribute to the production of systematic reviews. Our third objective is to really facilitate consumer involvement in the coordinating group's activities. Consumers are considered to be partners really in each step of the review process. So from priority setting through to initiating and conducting reviews, right through to disseminating results and knowledge translation activities. And then our fourth and final objective is to provide training in the form of workshops, webinars, clinics, courses, or symposia to help guide and support authors in producing systematic reviews. And just to give you an example, in 2022 alone, in terms of training opportunities in collaboration with the Campbell Collaboration, Campbell UK and Ireland, and others, we have provided 7 webinars on systematic reviews and other forms of evidence synthesis. We've provided 2 workshops to external organizations on systematic reviews and other forms of evidence synthesis. We've also provided 5 one-to-one clinics to support author teams, and we've published 3 newsletters which have been disseminated. And that continues to grow the demand for workshops and webinars and clinics. So I think that's something really unique that we provide through the Education Coordinating Group. In terms of the Education Coordinating Group leaders, as I mentioned, I serve as the co-chair of the Campbell Collaboration's Education Coordinating Group, along with Sarah Miller. As co-chairs, we are really responsible for the strategic leadership and fundraising with our team. We also help to maintain the internal governance and make final decisions regarding policy and implementation concerning the Education Coordinating Group. Sarah Miller also serves as our editor. Our methods editor is Darren Moore. We have associate editors, including Louise Gascoigne, Maria Katsupadiki, Emma Dobson, and Mel Bond. Patrick LaBelle serves as our information specialist, and our managing editor is Carrie Hall. And we're very, very grateful to all of the coordinating group leaders that do such immensely important and really time-consuming work to keep the coordinating group strong, vibrant, and very active. In terms of products that have been produced by the Education Coordinating Group, you'll see on the website, so obviously we have a journal now, Campbell Systematic Reviews, where you can find all of our products. So far to date, the Education Coordinating Group has published 29 systematic reviews. We have more that have been approved, and some of these are on the website, some of these are waiting to go up on the website, I suppose. In terms of those that have been approved, so far we have 42 systematic review titles. We have 51 systematic review protocols, so they're at the protocol stage. And we have 3 evidence and gap maps titles, which is one of our newest products with the Campbell Collaboration. And those have been approved. Some are on the website and some are just waiting to be put up on the website. And we have a few that are kind of in the process. Again, these are somewhere in the editorial process, I guess. We have 43 systematic review protocols, we have 21 reviews, and we have 1 evidence and gap map report. So lots of really great work being done, and you can see lots of products being produced. And then in terms of our future strategy components, where we're going next as an education coordinating group, the first is in terms of building the evidence base. So we're always trying to get authors involved in producing new reviews, reinvigorating discontinued registered protocols, updating existing reviews, and producing evidence and gap maps. We're also looking at how we can build a sustainable and collaborative network. And so that means looking at sustainable funding models. And we're also in the process of appointing a new advisory board. And we also look for ways that we can support the use of evidence. So getting evidence and systematic reviews into policy making, practice, and also into the public sphere. So we're kind of always looking for ways that we can kind of get systematic reviews and the use of evidence into policy practice and the public sphere. And then the fourth, I guess, strategy component going forward is to increase our capacity to produce reviews. We talked about some of the training and workshops we're providing, but also to look at capacity building in terms of our global network. So really looking at Global South, looking at places where we know that there is demand for this kind of work. So how we can involve researchers, policymakers, practitioners, and have better representation, I would say. Okay, so how you can get involved. You can join a review team. You can co-author a systematic review. You can always serve as a peer reviewer. We're always looking for peer reviewers for systematic reviews. You can help to organize Campbell seminars, and we'd be happy, Sarah and I, just reach out to us and we can help to coordinate some of that work. And you can, of course, sign up for our newsletter. That is the best way to stay up to date with all of the activities from the education coordinating group. And I'm just going to hand it over now to Sarah Miller. I'll very quickly introduce Sarah. Sarah Miller is the co-chair and editor of the Campbell Education Coordinating Group and director of Campbell UK and Ireland. She is Professor of Education at Queen's University in Belfast, and her research focuses on children's social emotional development and academic attainment. She has considerable methodological and statistical expertise, which includes the conduct and analysis of randomized controlled trials, as well as systematic reviews and meta-analyses. And Sarah is the co-author of Using Randomized Controlled Trials in Education, which was a book published in 2017 by Sage Publications. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you very much. That's great, and it's lovely to be here. So I think we have quite a lot of friends in this session. I'm sorry we can't see your faces, but just to run you through sort of the editorial process of the ECG, and if you're not familiar with us, we really want to welcome you into our coordinating group and Campbell family. So why would you register your review with the Campbell Education Coordinating Group? Well, Campbell reviews are particularly recognised for their methodological rigour and their high quality. And so as a first reason, that's a good one. I'd say our editorial process is particularly, and I'd say this is true of all coordinating groups actually, but more than sort of normal journals, we're very supportive and rigorous in our peer review process, and we do provide author teams with a lot of support and back and forth as well. So it's not a typical editorial process that you might be familiar with other journals. And we also offer, as Roisin has said, one-to-one sessions with teams as and when they need it. We have a pioneering methods group, and so it's great to be involved in an organisation that is at the forefront of quantitative synthesis methods, but also qualitative synthesis methods. And as we're always thinking about different types of evidence we can synthesize, Campbell is an important, I think, engine and organisation in terms of pushing forward some of those methods. So we're always trying to innovate and being part Campbell and Campbell Review allows you access to sort of those most up-to-date conversations and discussions and trainings, of course. Your review and your protocol will be published in the Journal of Campbell Systematic Reviews. We didn't used to be a journal, but we are now, and we are hopefully going to be very soon getting our impact factor. So we are excited for that. For us at Campbell, and certainly ECG, and I know DCG as well, knowledge translation and policy relevance is a key driver. So we want to be encouraging people to do reviews that actually have relevance and have an audience with which they're going to land. Ideally, bring the users of the review with us as we are doing the review, so that we engage with the convening power of organisations who are working in this space, as well as academics. And you'll be joining an enthusiastic community of systematic reviewers. And I think that's certainly one of the most positive experiences for me in terms of being part of the Campbell collaboration, is sort of the access to camaraderie, but also methodological expertise and substantive expertise as well has been really invaluable. So lots of reasons that I think are really excellent reasons for being part of Campbell and the Education Coordinating Group as well. So if you are considering a review with us, and certainly make contact, get in touch early in the process, because we can really guide you in terms of, you know, the types of reviews that we might be missing from our portfolio of reviews. Also, we do tend to have inactive reviews, so there might be reviews that you could potentially pick up that maybe other author teams just have not been able to continue with, and there has been some work done on. So it's worth getting in touch with us to see what support we can offer you, and any direction that we might be able to give you at that early stage that might save you a little bit of time and legwork further down the line. I would certainly say take time to consider the formulation of your review question, because everything hangs on that. And so getting it right from the start is key to the success of your review. And as I mentioned, making sure that it is policy and practice relevant will really help you when you want to then translate the evidence that you have generated into something useful and meaningful for the community for which you have intended it. I would definitely get you to think about your scope and how narrow or broad you want your review to be. And actually, you might want to even think about doing an evidence and gap map, which is a new synthesis product that we have been publishing over the last number of years. And they're certainly doing systematic reviews. You might even want to consider doing systematic review from an existing evidence and gap map where all the searching has already been done. You might have to do a few updates, but actually it's quite a neat and maybe slightly more focused review that you could do. So it's worth even looking to see what evidence and gap maps are out there that might help you refine the focus of your own review. We certainly recommend that you use the PICO framework, although that's not the only framework in existence, but some kind of framework that allows you and helps you to really structure your review question. Is definitely useful for authors. You might want to do an intervention review or a non-intervention review. You might have a whole new set of evidence that you want to synthesize, and we certainly welcome your ideas around that and see how we might support you as you consider what sources of evidence that you really want to include in your review. So there's a good bit of thinking that will really stand you in good stead that you can do prior to embarking on your review, and we can help you with that as well. So you're not on your own. My next top tip, this is a top tip, is to assemble a good team around you. You are not an island, and neither should you be. And you want to have people who have the methodological and the substantive expertise that will really help you, because, and we will help you identify, if there are any gaps in sort of the team as we look at the background of the team members that you have. We might be able to suggest co-authors that might complement the existing strengths of your team. So from that perspective, it's definitely a good idea to engage with. And one of the areas that people maybe don't think so much about is information retrieval. And it's absolutely recommended. We would certainly recommend strongly that you have an information retrieval specialist, not just somebody who you consult with, but as a co-author on your review, given the weight of expertise that they will be lending to you and to your review. So in terms of the registration or the editorial process in Campbell, we actually have three main steps. The first one is registering your title, so that that title then is kind of yours, and we make sure at the start that there are no other reviews out there that have done or are doing the same thing, and we ask you to check that as well. And so we'll register your title. That will get published on the Campbell or in Wiley's list of registered titles, and then you'll embark on your protocol. And for Campbell reviews, protocols are reviewed by 2 content experts, a methodological expert, an information retrieval specialist, and if you're coming through the ECG, then I will also review it. So you have a lot of reviews, and I will consolidate them for you, or the editor will consolidate them for you and iron out any wrinkles that there might be between reviewers. But it is a lot of information that's supportive and will strengthen your review. So it's a very in-depth review process, and actually at the final review will go through the same rigorous peer review from 2 content experts, methodological, information retrieval, and then an editorial review as well. And we also, as you might know, or you might not know, we also publish plain language summaries of our reviews. As you can imagine, reviews are quite lengthy, and so a plain language summary, which is 1 or 2 pages, is accompanies every review, and that really just states very clearly for a lay audience what the review was about and what the findings were and what the implications are. So when you're considering your review, I would absolutely encourage you to think about timescales. Even though it's a desk-based activity, it is a very intensive and there's a lot of steps and a lot of work, as all of those of you who have done reviews before will know. So it can be time and resource hungry. So we certainly would encourage you to get funding for your review, although that's not entirely necessary for us to accept it into the editorial process. But also encourage you to think about how you're going to engage with and maintain the engagement of key stakeholders. Something we are really active in encouraging our author teams to do, because we want our reviews to have maximum policy and practice impact. So it's not just about engaging the stakeholders at the start, but also the whole way through towards the end of the review as well, because they'll be an important vehicle through which the evidence is put to use. And remember, the challenges, and there will be many, and there are exciting, and they're not ours alone to resolve. One of where innovation happens often is where we draw from other disciplines and apply methods and perspectives that are perhaps new to us in education, but have been used in other areas. And working in teams that incorporates multiple perspectives is certainly part of that. So I am going to stop there and say thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much. Wonderful overview. And you can see the Education Coordinating Group, a great focus on a supportive mentorship for any of our authors and anyone that wants to get involved. Okay, so our next speaker is Oliver Wendt. Oliver is Associate Professor and Chair in Cognitive and Emotional Disabilities at the University of Potsdam. Together with Joann Starks, he serves as co-chair of the Disability Coordinating Group. He has authored or co-authored over half a dozen systematic reviews addressing efficacy questions of interventions in developmental disabilities, and has conducted a wide variety of trainings and workshops for rehabilitation researchers on the topics of evidence-based practice, meta-analyses, and research synthesis. Over to you, Oliver.
Thank you very much, Roisin, for this very kind introduction. I'm very glad to speak today. And before I get started, let me extend our gratitude from the DCG to our colleagues here in the ECG. We are truly very grateful and very happy that we have a shared event. This is the first time we're having a shared event between the 2 coordinating groups, and this seems to be a very timely effort, because in reality, a lot of our systematic reviews do overlap with the education arena. And some people may not know this. It is always possible to co-register a systematic review project between the 2 groups. All right, so let me talk a little bit about our Campbell Disability Coordinating Group, or DCG for short. The DCG goes back to an initiative by John Westbrook. John Westbrook was a renowned managing researcher at the American Institutes of Research in Austin, Texas at the time. He was truly a pioneer and promoter of evidence-based practices in disability and rehabilitation research. He truly believed and pushed the idea that clinical practice should rely more on research evidence and that the research evidence should guide the clinical efforts. So John in 2008 wrote a letter of request to the board and established a so-called disability subgroup within the larger education coordinating group. Like Sarah told you before, the education coordinating group was actually one of the first Campbell groups that were ever established. And within that, we had originally a little subgroup for disability research. Our aim and still our intention is always going to be to help connect individuals that are interested in conducting a systematic review and disability and rehabilitation research with other folks that have expertise, that have done this before, that can help you and that can serve as a resource for consultation or even be a co-author on your team. So then as the years went by, we officially got recognized and established as our own coordinating group. That happened in May 2017. And we are very fortunate to have generous support for peer review and maintaining our infrastructure from the American Institutes for Research in Austin, Texas. So here's how our group is currently structured. We have two co-chairs. There's Joann Starks, who is also with the American Institutes for Research, and myself. We have two co-editors, Carlton Fong, who's at the Texas State University, and then our colleague Brian Weiko, who recently relocated to the University of Connecticut. We also have a methods editor, who is Derek Rogers. He currently works at the University of Iowa. And our managing editor is Sarah Doling, who is with the Bruyere Research Institute in Canada. And we are very thankful for all of their contributions, because without their help, we could never get all the systematic review productions done. So in an effort to help us guide the development of our still relatively young coordinating group, we have established an advisory board. The advisory board includes a variety of more senior and renowned researchers from several fields, including biomedical, rehabilitation sciences, educational and social sciences. And we also, the names are too numerous. You can see them here on the slides. And we're also always making an effort to involve direct stakeholder input into our advisory board. Right now, the advisory board meets only about once a year. As our group keeps on growing, we're hoping that we can have that input a little bit more frequently on a more ongoing basis. This next slide shows again who is all on the board. And having said that, I'll hand it over to my colleague, Joann, who will talk about the key objectives.
Here we go. Thank you so much, Oliver. And just to reiterate your point, we are absolutely thrilled to host this session, a joint session with the Disability Coordinating Group also, and long may this collaboration and relationship continue between the ECG and the DCG. So our next speaker is Joann Starks. Joann is a Senior Technical Assistance Consultant at the American Institutes for Research. She works with the Center on Knowledge Translation for Disability and Rehabilitation Research, funded by the National Institute on Disability, Independent Living and Rehabilitation Research. She has served with Dr. Oliver Wendt as a co-chair of the Disability Coordinating Group since it was established by the Campbell Collaboration in 2017. Joann was awarded the John Westbrook Award for contributions to knowledge translation, and her expertise includes training and technical assistance support over a broad range of topics for individuals with disabilities. Over to you, Joann.
Thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you, Oliver, for getting us started today. So we do have several objectives that we've been working on and trying to implement over these years. And the first one, of course, is undertaking and maintaining systematic reviews that are both of high quality and timely, with the purpose of improving the quality of life and outcomes for people with disabilities. And then our second objective is to establish and maintain a network of individuals with experience, expertise, and interest in developing and contributing to disability-related systematic reviews. And that includes our peer reviewers. Encouraging the involvement of people with disabilities, their family members, and other stakeholders in all steps of the systematic review process is another critical objective. And that also includes work, knowledge translation, and dissemination of user-friendly interpretations of review results. And then finally, our last objective is focusing on providing training opportunities for people who are interested in authoring systematic reviews and in producing Canva reviews in the disability arena. So I'll next touch a little on our editorial process. It's very similar to what Sarah described already with the education coordinating group. The main steps are registering a title, submitting and getting approval for a protocol, and then submitting and publishing the systematic review. Excuse me. So in the submitting the title registration form actually starts the process, and the editors will become involved at that point. Often one of the issues is really focusing in on making a very well-defined topic. And as Sarah had mentioned previously, using the PICO would help. And so there may be some correspondence back and forth between the proposed author team and our editors in making sure that that topic and title are well-defined and well-focused before it's actually approved. And if approved by the editors, and then it would be listed among the Campbell titles on the website that Wiley maintains for the Campbell Systematic Reviews Journal. Our managing editor keeps track of all this correspondence between the authors and the editors. And then that includes the entire process. So after the title is approved and registered and published, then the next step is working on the protocol. And in this case, again, there's some back and forth between the editors, the methods editors. There will be 2 content expert peer reviewers to make sure that the content is appropriate, and then the information retrieval expert. So this process can be lengthy as suggestions are made, and the author team, I have here required changes, but actually it's more requested changes. So it's worked out between the author team and the editors as to what changes might be needed before the protocol is approved. And once the protocol is approved, then it is that roadmap for finishing the review. A lot of work that goes into the protocol is goes straight into the review, but it may be updated a little bit as additional information is added before it's finalized. So that last step of submitting and publishing the review is very similar process to the protocol. There's a lot of back and forth until everybody is satisfied that we have a final product. And again, as Sarah mentioned earlier, I think the plain language summary is developed as a part of the final review. So in talking with our editors before we made this session, we asked what some of the bigger issues are that they have come in contact with in doing this process. And so I think, as I mentioned earlier, choosing the topic and making sure that it's very well defined is a critical factor, because that really does guide what's going to be happening in the rest of the process. And if your topic isn't clear, then later on you'll find out that there may be some issues. And then finding peer reviewers is another difficult step in the editorial process. We've been fortunate that we've been able to get people to volunteer with us and help us by doing that review, but it is time consuming, and so it is definitely a step that requires a lot of extra effort. So the next slide would talk about some of the products that we have produced. Really, and in the first part, from 2008 to 2017, we're part of the Education Coordinating Group, so that's a little bit separate. Those reviews are actually Education Coordinating Group reviews. But some of the protocols that were approved with the subgroup then moved on to become actual reviews. So since 2018, when we really began our work as a coordinating group, we have 4 completed and published reviews, 1 updated review from that previous group. We've got 11 protocols, 1 evidence and gap map, and currently we have 14 titles registered. So you can see the things that we have in process. We have additional titles, protocols, and reviews coming up. We have 1 new protocol that was just published a couple of weeks ago, and it's appeared in Campbell's Systematic Reviews, Volume 18, Issue 4, which is the December issue. And that's a protocol on interventions to improve outdoor mobility among adults with disability. So we've even though our numbers are not large, they're growing, and we really appreciate all the support that we've had over the years to get these products out there and get them used. So the next step I'll talk about is our training. We've had some training efforts over, again, all these years. And we do a lot of the training in collaboration with Campbell, generally, and also with the Center on Knowledge Translation for Disability, Independent Living, and Rehabilitation Research, the Epicenter, located in the UK, Corcoran Rehabilitation, and others. We've been fortunate that we have a lot of researchers who are willing and able to help us provide training sessions. And so over the last years, we've had 27 webcasts on systematic reviews and other forms of evidence synthesis. We've had 5 online workshops, and it covers evidence synthesis, systematic reviews, scoping reviews, qualitative synthesis, and assessing systematic reviews. And then recently, we've had a couple of information briefs published through the Center on KTDRR, one on new methods and technologies for keeping systematic reviews up to date and engaging stakeholders for research impact. So these products are on the KTDRR website and can be found at ktdrr.org/products. So those are some of the activities that we've been doing, and I'm now going to hand back to Oliver as we discuss the strategies to embed and maximize impact.
Okay, and
Project. You guys can still hear me, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, good. So I can only reiterate what Sarah had mentioned before, that it is very important from the get-go to involve stakeholders. Stakeholder input can help you refine your research questions and really making sure that you're hitting important research gaps that in the end will make an impact for the consumer and for potential users. Through stakeholder input, you can also get a good overview how to frame your background and how to provide the proper context information. And finally, most systematic review funding agencies, many of our review authors are seeking funding from federal resources and related agencies. Most of them will ask for a proper dissemination strategy. I'll be talking a little bit more about this in just a second. And you need to identify channels to come up with a proper dissemination plan. And it's always good to talk directly to stakeholders. What are those preferred channels and modes what are the most impactful potential dissemination outlets and channels. Anytime you submit a grant, you always want to talk with the program officer well in advance. And in this case, make sure that you have an overview on what has been funded in the past, that you're not duplicating efforts. However, sometimes if there is a review effort that has been several decades ago and the topic is becoming of renewed interest, or it is worth picking it up again, you might actually also do exactly that. And be sure when you talk with the program officer that you get a good sense for what is it that they would like to see in a research proposal for a systematic review or meta-analysis. For larger systematic review projects, it is advisable to establish your own study advisory board, and we can help you. Both the ECG and the DCG can help you do that by getting you in touch with proper research experts and stakeholders that you can ask for resources and to be co-authors, or just in an advisory capacity, helping you to get your project off the ground. So I mentioned this before, a very critical component of a systematic review research proposal is to submit a dissemination plan. You would typically do this at the proposal stage while you are conceptualizing your idea. And such a dissemination plan should contain a variety of channels. You should also give the intended audience and the rationale why it's important to reach out to that particular audience. And you want to balance things. You want to, like we traditionally do, you want to involve your research colleagues and appeal to your scientific community, but it is also about creating impact. This is the big word these days. That's why we have so many slides on how to create impact. What are some advice? What are some strategies? Funding agencies these days just don't want to see the research stay in the ivory tower. They want that active effort to carry it out in the field, and that it kind of makes a measurable impact for the stakeholders and consumers. So certain channels, here's a few ideas that might work for your systematic review project. You can always do targeted email messages and through stakeholder input identify what audiences to send those email messages to. You can send newsletter articles out through your proper professional and scientific organizations. There is various conferences like Campbell or Corcoran, but also professional scientific field-specific conferences where you can distribute your systematic review results. Webcasts have become very prominent these days. Joann has just mentioned a few channels that are maintained by the American Institutes of Research and the Center for Knowledge Translation and Dissemination. Those are very good outlets to go through if you're interested in disseminating disability-related research. You can create fact sheets and infographics for your stakeholders, policy briefs that can be sent back to those that have been participating or that are directly impacted, directly touched by the results of your systematic review efforts. And of course, there are a variety of website and social media posts nowadays available where you can reach out and create a targeted, concentrated social media strategy to maximize the word and get the research results out. So then after systematic review production, again, it is critical to maintain that stakeholder involvement and engagement. Recently, our editors of the Campbell Review, the new journal, put out an editorial, and the headline in the editorial was, "Research, what is it good for?" And the answer is to inform policy and practice. So like I mentioned before, the research results are not supposed to stay just within the scientific community. We have to get them out of the ivory tower of research and directly into the field where they can make an impact by informing policy and practice. So now is the time, after you've done your systematic review results, or as soon as you have the first preliminary results, that you execute an effective dissemination strategy. And some just initial ideas here, it always depends on what your field is and what exactly your topic is, but some general strategies are listed here on the slide. You can submit the systematic reviews through the Campbell Systematic Reviews. It's a new open access journal. Very soon, Campbell Systematic Reviews is getting an impact factor. We expect the impact factor to be significantly high, because we are basically establishing the major journal, the go-to journal for systematic reviews here in the fields of behavioral, social, and educational sciences. The Campbell Systematic Reviews, Joann has already mentioned this, every systematic review comes with a plain language summary. I cannot stress enough how important that is to create a plain language summary, because the average consumer may not understand all the technicalities of a systematic review. So it's very important to have a summary of that systematic review that is like just mentioning and highlighting the major key results and putting that in a language that is understandable by those that are supposed to benefit from these results. Various stakeholder outlets exist. I mentioned the center down in Texas at AIR Texas, the Center for Knowledge Translation and Disability Research, that is also federally funded and maintained by AIR. That is always a good resource and channel. And Joann has given you this whole slide and overview of a variety of workshops and information briefs that are created and disseminated through that center. The different subfields, we have several in disability, from speech language pathology over special education to occupational and physical therapy and so forth. They all have their own evidence-based practice journals these days, and it is always a good idea to produce a structured abstract that gives the key points and results of your systematic review and submits it to such an evidence-based practice journal. I've put one example down from my own field. I'm in speech language pathology, so evidence-based communication assessment intervention is truly interested in getting those structured abstracts of systematic reviews and meta-analyses. And again, we can always do a targeted social media campaign to reach out to even broader audiences and kind of see who else we can catch and cast in the wider net that we may not have spoken so directly to. Okay, and then our last slide, I think, is just our channels, how to reach out to us. You can find us also on Facebook. And then let me close by thanking you all for attending. And again, big thank you to our colleagues here in the ECG for hosting us. This is wonderful. We're looking forward to many future collaborative events like this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Oliver, and really to all of our presenters. And just to reiterate some of the points that Oliver just made, there are so many ways that we can collaborate with researchers, for example, to help you embed impact and knowledge translation activities. So, for example, we can collaborate with you on large funding proposals and help you think through some of that. But we can also collaborate with government agencies, nonprofits, philanthropy. There's lots of ways in which we can help to shape some of the priority areas, highlighting where there might be gaps in some of the evidence, helping you to work more effectively with grantees, for example, in thinking about knowledge translation activities. So lots of ways in which we would love to collaborate, and please do get in touch with us. We're always happy to collaborate and hear from practitioners and policymakers and other researchers. So we're going to move on now to the Q&A. Sarah Miller has kindly offered to lead the Q&A. So we're going to take some questions, ones that have been put in through the chat. And Sarah, you can direct those to each of our panel members.
No problem. The other thing I would just add to what has just been said, if you are submitting funding proposals that include systematic reviews and you want to put them through the editorial groups, any of the editorial groups in Campbell, we would really encourage you to put in the editorial costs as well associated with that. A lot of the work that we do is we do on a volunteer basis or funded by elsewhere, but we are also funding the editorial costs through funding proposals as well. So do talk to us about that. So there is a question here, which is from Sarah. I'm never in a meeting where there isn't at least another Sarah, so hello, Sarah. In your review processes, have you noticed any trends in the use of single case designs globally? And have you seen any particularly innovative or promising practices with those designs? And I know we also have Carlton in the audience, but unfortunately, Carlton, I don't think you can speak. So it is in education. We do, I think, have one review off the top of my head, Sarah, that I could direct you to. I can't recall the exact title of it. But yes, I mean, one of the things that I would say is, this with my editor hat on, is that if there are types of evidence that aren't typically synthesized, I mean, often we are synthesizing evidence from perhaps standardized mean differences from groups of participants, and many groups of participants, or other types of effect sizes. But if there are other types of evidence that you want to synthesize and there aren't necessarily, it's quite a new type of evidence to synthesize, it's not the traditional type, then definitely do come and talk to us, because we are certainly very interested in innovating. And I see Oliver has his hand up. Is that because you're saving me from myself, Oliver, or...
Yeah, so I just wanted to add, this is a very hot topic currently, and we are seeing more and more reviews that are incorporating both group designs and single case experimental designs. And as you may know, Campbell also has a methods group, and the methods group has put out a methods brief. What are proper effect sizes and statistical aggregation procedures to combine group and single case experimental design effect sizes in a systematic review? And if you Google that on the Campbell website, it will be taking you directly to that methods brief. I have been fortunate myself recently, for the first time in my career, to have a systematic review funded through the US Department of Health and Human Resources for such a grand effort. And other of my colleagues have recently received funding for a meta-analysis of group designs and single case designs through the Institute of Educational Science in the United States. So this is a very hot topic. I encourage you to pursue this further. And please reach out to us if there is any questions, if we can provide guidance in that direction.
And thank you, Sarah. And I think it's testament to kind of the different types of things that are gaining traction in the different review groups. So it's not so much of an issue for us, but obviously is in your group as Oliver, which is great. Let me just flip back to the questions. So somebody, Kathleen, you have asked, does the peer review process differ for an evidence gap map versus regular review? At the moment, it doesn't, in that the peer review process is the same, but actually the methods, when you think about the protocol, the methods review that is required for a systematic review would be quite different than the methods review that's required for an evidence and gap map. So I think we will be looking at the peer review process for evidence and gap maps, and do they need to be tailored a little bit? I think certainly in the methods side, they will do, because it doesn't require just as much of a methods review as a systematic review would. But in terms of content and information retrieval, and the editorial review, that would be the same, yeah. And it's the same in terms of the 3 steps, the title registration, protocol, and the review as well, if that's helpful. I don't know if you have any more questions. You are more than welcome to post them in the chat. One of the things that I wanted to ask Oliver and Joann, actually, and you've alluded to it already in terms of what are the hot topics. Are there any other hot topics in disability that you would kind of welcome reviews on if somebody wasn't quite sure what direction or area they wanted to undertake a review in? Is there are there areas that you know are kind of ripe for review, or does that work actually need to be done?
That's a good question, and I hope that our editors, who I think are with us, might be able to chime in on the Q&A box. I know that autism has been one of the hot topics over the last several years, and Oliver has been active in that area. And also, I think mental health is another area where there's a lot of great interest and a lot of need for research right now. Oliver, have you got anything else that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend to check out our evidence map and gap map. We were one of the first groups that had such a review of evidence or larger review being published. And that will give you a good oversight which areas in disability and rehabilitation are relatively well researched and where the current gaps are. You know, and Joann has mentioned some of those. Mental health, very big topic. Autism interventions, a lot of adult interventions are currently just because of the increase in adult populations and in gerontology, so much of a more of a need to review interventions and assessment practices in those areas.
Another idea is long COVID, and long COVID, I think, is another hot topic right now, and there's been a lot of research, of course, in those areas.
And I would just add as well to that, for the education coordinating group, there's lots of need to update some existing reviews. And so you might be an author or a team that's thinking about doing a systematic review, and you could go on to the Campbell Systematic Review or website or journal website and see what's been conducted in the past. And some of these reviews, you know, they're now out of date, they need to be updated. That might give you some ideas on, you know, updating some existing reviews. And also know that in the education coordinating group, we are going to be advertising some titles that we are looking for new author teams to get involved in. So again, you don't have to come with kind of a new idea. You can come to us even if you're just interested in getting involved in the work, and we can help to guide you and steer you in that process.
Brilliant, thank you. Another question just popped into the box, which is, and this is for Joann and Oliver. Do you know if there's an increase, well, maybe for us as well, do you know if there's an increased interest in interventions provided in school settings for students with disabilities?
I would say this is an ongoing interest, and there's definitely, I don't know if it's an increase, but it's definitely high in interest in that area.
Yeah,
Okay.
that is a good example for a systematic review effort that could be co-registered, because it's school-based. It has a strong relationship to education-based research, and if it's for a special need population, then disability and rehab might be coming in. So co-registration, again, you can get the best of both worlds, the advice from both groups, and you can be sure that you're setting up a very comprehensive review effort with the proper stakeholder and advisory councils available to you.
Okay, so I think that is all we have time for. Thank you so much to all of our presenters today. What a wonderful session. Thanks to everybody who listened in and contributed questions through the chat. I'm sure our conversations will continue. And again, please do reach out to us. We're very happy to collaborate and hear from folks that are interested in the work that we're doing in the ECG and the DCG in terms of the Campbell collaboration. I just want to encourage everyone who's listening, do please visit the virtual poster gallery and the exhibition and meeting hub. Lots of interesting posters and and different events taking place there. And finally, I really want to say thank you again to all of our sponsors. You're going to see them listed on this slide here. We're very grateful that you've got behind this work that is really so important in terms of driving evidence-based practice and policy making. So thank you all for sponsoring this event and the panel sessions. So that's it from us. Thanks again and enjoy the rest of the conference. We hope you have a great couple of days.
Thank you.